Starting. And I believe we're live, ladies and gentlemen. After a long layoff, this is the Mumble and the Jungle Show. My name is Michael Thompson, and my guest today, as usual, Mr. Michael Frazier. You might know him as Fraymous on Twitter. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, bro.
Man, yeah, it's been a little bit too long. I'm glad we could hop back in this thing. I'm hoping everything's working out. It only took us about an hour and a half to get this all started, but there's a lot to talk about, so I was willing to put in the time just to get the conversation out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. It's been absolutely nuts the last, I'm going to say the last week of, combat sports overall has been nuts. But today we're pretty much here to talk about the fiasco that is UFC 223.
Just really the whole week in general. I mean, obviously it all started on April Fool's Day. I mean, of course, nobody thought that when you first started seeing the tweets come in. I mean, I was even seeing tweets earlier in the morning that were obviously people trolling as far as saying, oh, Khabib popped by USADA or Tony got hurt or blah, blah, blah. And then you see Brett Okamoto. I'm actually I believe I was one of the first people who even saw this tweet, because when I saw it was Brett Okamoto. He tweeted it before Ariel Helwani. He was like, yes, this is not a joke. Tony's off the card, tore his knee. And I'm like sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, this can't be real. And then I see the video by Dana White, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's still some kind of elaborate prank. They say Max Holloway's subbing in for Tony. Maybe Max is in on the gag. Like, does he really want to fight Khabib on 6 days' notice? Like, these are all the thoughts that are going through your head immediately off the bat. And once I realized that it wasn't a joke, I start seeing Ariel talk about it. Some of the other guys that I really don't think, like such as Brett Okamoto, would lie about such a thing or give into a gag. And Dana doesn't get along with Ariel. He wouldn't have him in on the gag, if it was to be a prank. So it all started off with that. And then, man, I don't think anybody had any idea how much worse it could possibly get. But, I mean, it's pretty much rock bottom at this point, if I say so myself.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Nobody could have seen it getting to where it's at. A couple of years ago, was it 2016? It was DC and Jones 2. The rematch was canceled, and it was also on April Fool's Day, and it turned out to be legit. And Jones went on to face OSP. Because UFC, they've done this before in the past, and it unfortunately wasn't a joke then. And this time it wasn't either. I was hoping that this is what they were going to do to try and scare people, like, hey, look, it happened before, and then it turned out to be a joke. Unfortunately, here we are now, and we've had I don't even know how many title fights at 155 we've tried to make in the last week. I think we're up to like 5 different possibilities at this point.
I mean, I believe we've tried to make quite a few today ourselves. I mean, we were all ever since we first heard the news this morning that Max was not going to make weight. I mean, there's been at least 3 different possible lightweight title fights that have been thrown out, and we'll get to all that. But I mean, just what was your initial reaction? We'll start off from the basics. What was your initial reaction when you heard that once again, for the 4th time, this coveted fight that we've been looking forward to for so long between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson was once again canceled, and by a absolute freak accident that it was? Like, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
I mean, are you fucking serious?
Absolutely.
That's exactly what it was. I'm pretty sure that's exactly the first text message that I sent was those exact words.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my tweet was very similar.
But it hurts, but I'm adjusted at this point. I think we should all be well adjusted. This fight may be, even if you're not superstitious, you almost have to be with this fight. It seems cursed at this point.
Absolutely.
So, when you hear it, you have the initial reaction. It's gut-wrenching. It's a disappointment. But it's not as bad as it was last time. Not for me, at least. Yeah,
absolutely. And, I mean, with Dana saying he's not really interested in ever putting this fight again together, I mean, I think that would be one of the greatest robberies from the fans of all time. But, I mean, I almost see his point, because it's just like, it's just you definitely can't make it a main event, because, I mean, this is the trickle-down effect. Like, I mean, you see what's happened this week. I mean, I'm not sure the Conor thing really had anything to do with the fight breaking about or whatever. But man, it's just a tough situation. I mean, there's so many tough situations to get to, and what was supposed to be like the best week of the year, outside of what could have been the big super card with DC and Stipe, and they were originally talking about maybe Mighty Mouse and TJ. And I know Cody and TJ are probably going to do their rematch instead now, but this is probably building up to be the best card of the year, and for it to go down like this is just really I mean, it breaks my heart, man. As a diehard, I mean, it really does break my heart.
It does. It's terrible because, like Dana said, it's how can you put this fight together at this point?
Right.
This is the fourth time it's fallen apart. At this point, even if you do, it's too big of a fight not to be at the top of the card, but it's too much of a liability to be a main or co-main event.
Absolutely.
So it puts them in a hard spot. Like you said, do you stack a fight night card and you put this on a fight night card? Is that the only way possible to do it? So you just have like a good like the number one contender match is the co-main event on it?
Right. My thing is eventually, if they keep winning, I mean, let's say Khabib goes out and beats Iaquinta this week, and I mean, Tony comes back and they give him whoever, and he wins, and then let's just say by somehow the next fight is miraculously Conor and Khabib wins, and then Tony keeps winning. Eventually, they're not going to have any choice but to make the fight again. You know what I'm saying? Like, what really can you do? I mean, I know it's unfortunate that we have gone down this road so many times and have had to suffer this heartbreak over and over again. But I mean, these are two of the best fighters in the world, and I would really love to have them have the chance to finally settle this rivalry. I mean, I feel like a fifth time around, neither of them are either going to be open their mouths. They need to be both riding around in wheelchairs. Like, they need to have bubble wrap wrapped around them at all time. Like, no, I say do it, man. I say do it because that's a fight that I've been wanting to see since 2015 when they first announced it. Yeah,
I understand that. It's like if the fight never comes to fruition, then everybody loses out. Not the fans lose. We lose out as fans completely because like they're two of the top fighters, not just at their weight class, but two of the top fighters in the world. And right. Especially at 155, if you look at them, they both probably have the most impressive winning streaks in that division, and not just across the UFC, but internationally as well. At 155, what they were able to the win streaks that both of these guys are on, Khabib is still undefeated, and Tony is on. What is he at? What is his number up to now?
10, 11?
Like 10 or right in there. He's right around 10 wins, I think it is, in a row at probably the deepest division in the entire sport.
No doubt about it. And that just makes it even more of a mess, the fact that this is the deepest division in the sport, and there are so many guys who are coming up in the ranks, like your Dustin Poirier's, your Eddie Alvarez is about to try to make a crack back at it, Edson Barboza, Kevin Lee. These guys are all still in the mix, on top of all the young guys coming up, and they're not even getting a chance to work their way up right now because, I mean, it's just jammed with Conor, Tony, and Khabib right now, and it's just a mess. And I mean, we think we know what the next move is. We think that the worst has already come, and then something else crazy happens. I mean, at this rate, I could see Iaquinta knocking out Khabib in the first round just because of how crazy this week has been.
Just because MMA.
Yeah. That's all you have to say.
That's all. That is all you have to say. And the supposed MMA gods, they're unforgiving. So don't throw a wrench into any plan. Anything that's supposed to be a certainty. I mean, there are no certainties in this sport. It's the only thing that's certain about that.
Absolutely. I think that's enough time to dwell on that depressing news. We can move on to the next little bit of depressing news. And where would you like to start? Because I know that obviously everyone wants to hear about the McGregor thing, but then we also have to talk about the Holloway thing. And
let's jump right into the Holloway thing. Actually,
okay.
First off, this is probably the first time in history that a fighter is actually still getting props, even though he didn't make weight for the title fight and is actually out of the fight. I do want to point out that it was pointed out on Twitter, and it's been confirmed that the commission pulled Holloway based on an eye test. They did not pull him because the doctor said he was unfit to go. The commission came in and looked. They said they didn't like the way that he looked while he was cutting weight and called it off right there. So there was never a doctor involved. That being said, so it's not like Max. We don't know what condition he was in, obviously, because we weren't there. So it's not like Max came in and said, I can make the weight, and then got on the scale and completely whiffed. He had somebody from the commission who was probably unqualified, just said, no, never mind, it's not going to happen. So still props to Max Holloway, but unfortunately he stepped in trying to have a 145 champion versus 155 champion. It was supposed to be almost like a super fight, and then bam, we lose it.
It's just there's so many emotions that go through my head, and in a week that's already had just what seems to be limitless emotions. It's almost like you run out of words to say, because like I said, it's just like it's one thing down or one step down. You're like, okay, this is the worst it can get. Then it's like rock bottom again and rock bottom again. But when I woke up and heard this news with Max Holloway, obviously I was devastated, but I tend to agree on what you were speaking on as far as the fans giving him props for even putting himself in there to fight what many people considered, or to offer to fight what many people consider to be possibly one of the most dangerous fighters and dominant fighters of really all time. I mean, just with his style and his tenacity and the way that he breaks people. It's just not even the fact that he's undefeated 25-0. It's the way that he does it. And the fact that everyone knows what he's going to do and still does it. To offer to fight that guy on 6 days notice, man, that takes very big balls.
It does.
Excuse my French, but it takes very, very big balls. And, for him to just even put himself in that situation is enough to earn my respect. Was it a little bit too unrealistic? Maybe. I think that's up for him and George Lockhart, or whoever his nutritionist who he was working with is up. Yeah, I believe it was George Lockhart, because I think earlier in the week they said Khabib stopped working with George Lockhart and Tyler Mitten because Max was also working with them. So I don't know if that was something that could have been really, addressed up front by Lockhart, or if he was really just trying to, get his guy in there and give him the chance to really do what Max said he wanted to do. Like, he was like, this is how legends are made. We step up on these fights, like Bisping and Rockhold type situation. Or Diaz McGregor, just take the fight on short notice and come in there and just prove everybody wrong. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of mentality he had. And, you can't fault him for the mentality. It sucks that the UFC had to do all the promotion with Tony, and then they had to do all this promotion with Max, and now they're gonna have to completely change all these video packages for the Iaquinta fight. It's almost like it's like a game of dominoes. It's just the Tony injury happened, and then it's just a constant little things that have been trickling down, and then now here we are with a card that was like I said at the beginning of the show, one of the best cards of the year, if not the best card of the year. Went from 13 fights to 10 fights. And it's interesting. It's interesting, man. I've never seen anything like this. Like I said, we'll get into the Conor stuff, but just overall, this week has been like nothing I've ever seen in the sport. I remember some pretty big moments that I like in the past, like when RDA pulled out of the McGregor fight, and then they got Diaz on short notice. Like, that was one moment that I remember where it was just like chaos, just like what could be, like just madness everywhere. There hasn't been too many of those moments since I've been a fan of the sport for the past 8 or 9 years, but
those are exciting moments though. This is like what we're having this week. It's chaos. It's it's just kind of it's a different type of excitement. It's more of a panic.
Right.
And, then we go from, like you said, to Max, and here we are at Al Iaquinta. But, in the middle we lost Paul Felder as well, who, honestly, Paul Felder would have been a great replacement too. But, he's not – they said no because of the UFC's rankings.
And I don't get that. How is that? I mean, Dan Henderson. I guess Dan Henderson was ranked 14th at middleweight when he fought Michael Bisping, and that fight also was in London. But you're telling me that Dan Henderson, even though Dan Henderson did way better in that fight than I ever gave him a chance to against Bisping, you're telling me that
Dan Henderson might be the greatest MMA fighter of all time.
Yeah, you're right. But what I'm saying is that you're telling me a 46-year-old Dan Henderson belonged to be in there for a middleweight title fight against a Michael Bisping, who is what he is, and you can't put a Paul Felder in. I mean, like, that's a fight I would have loved to see for Khabib coming up to, like, earn this title shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, Paul Felder, I'm not saying he was a lightweight gatekeeper. He just happened to have a couple fights that got him pushed outside of the top 15. If you remember, there was a time where Paul Felder was, like, the next big thing in the lightweight division when he's spinning back-fisted Danny Castillo. I mean,
and I still believe he is.
He's still evolving.
He's a young fighter.
He's evolving, too, yeah. And, I mean, like we were talking about off air, like, he works with Cowboy in whatever setup they have. I'm not sure if it's a permanent thing or if it's a part-time thing that they do at the ranch, but I mean that's a great mind and a great motivator, a guy who really understands the mentality of fighting, and I don't know if that's something that go ahead. No, you got it.
I say he just truly improves from every fight. You can see he seems like a sponge. Every performance, you can tell that he's better than the last time he came out. Absolutely.
I don't know if it was his last loss, but I believe he suffered a loss to, I want to say, Francisco Trinaldo via cut. And, I mean, I don't know if that was his last fight, but ever since then, he's been on a tear. He's had 2 elbow knockouts viciously. And, I mean, that was one of the things that I was saying I could see happening to Khabib. I mean, I know his takedown defense probably is nowhere near what it would need to be in order to stop Khabib. But the way that Khabib rushes in, if he didn't really, like, shoot for a strong double and tried to kind of, like, clinch him up, like you push him up against the fence like he usually does, I could easily see Felder hitting a little elbow or hitting a nice little up elbow or something and, you know, changing the dynamic of the fight. With Iaquinta now, that's a different story because I'm not going to call him a brawler, but, I mean, he'd probably be the least technical of the guys who were thrown out there. I mean, it's a huge opportunity for him, and I feel great for, like, those Raymond Longo guys for getting this opportunity out of nowhere that nobody saw coming. But the guy who gets the short end of the stick is Paul Felder because, I mean, is he going to fight Pettis? I mean, here, I haven't checked Twitter in a while. If you get a chance, if I go on a rant, see if they have announced anything because, I mean, are they just going to, like, pay all these fighters who didn't get to fight? Like,
they had, in order to get paid, they would have had to weigh in. So the guys who didn't weigh in don't.
Well, yeah, but the only guys who didn't really weigh in were the guys who were hurt, Ray Borg, and.
But what is that? You get hurt at our event, not by your fault of your own, and you don't get paid. I mean, that's a different conversation.
I think they're going to be taken care of. One, in a lawsuit from the McGregor pocketbook, and 2, I'm sure they're going to be getting some kind of compensation. We'll see how that all plays out. I'm sure that will be a very big topic in the MMA media in the coming week.
Yeah, and, you know, I could definitely see that, especially if the UFC chooses to go after McGregor and they name them in this, they represent them in the suit as well.
Right.
That's a very good possibility.
Yeah, and I mean we might as well just go ahead and jump right into it. I mean the Conor McGregor thing. I mean there's so many things that could be said about it, and I just you know how I feel, and if any of our watchers or listeners remember from our previous shows, I was liking to consider myself a pretty big Conor McGregor fan. Some of my friends would say that I'm probably a little bit too much of a Conor McGregor fan, and they have given me instances why in the past, and I would kind of write them off and have this little mythical story played in my mind. Did I ever think it was going to get this bad? Not a chance. But as soon as I realized how bad this was, when I heard Mike Chiesa suffered a cut because of what Conor did, it was almost like the moment I feel like I compare to. I have a lot of friends who are very big Jon Jones fans, very big Jon Jones fans, and in their mind he can do no wrong. You know what I'm saying? And it almost is like that's what I had become with McGregor. You know, it's like when Jon Jones hit a pregnant lady, it's like, oh, that's finally like the wake-up call, you know, or the UFC 200 thing where he gets pulled 3 days out of the fight, the biggest rematch of his life, and Cormier has to fight Anderson Silva on 3 days' notice. And, you know, it's just I feel like the feeling that I felt yesterday learning about this is what diehard Jones fans felt through all of his transgressions in the past.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like that's what I was kind of waiting for you to say. Like I've been waiting to hear those words on it for a very long time now from you. And it's I don't want to attack the guy, but I think we kind of talked about this a little bit off air. The way I'm trying to remember how I put it then was that like I described it. I think is that meme that's going around lately of the car and the interstate. Conor was he was fun while he was going straight, but now he's making that hard right on that exit where he's not supposed to be taking, and now it's not fun anymore.
Right.
It's not. It's not a good time anymore. Now it's almost like watching a car crash. Like I feel like I'm rubbernecking this guy's career.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a guy. I sit over here. I'm looking at my wall. I have McGregor like toys, like bobbleheads. I have a couple posters. Got just memorabilia galore. I got his book over here. I got his movie on DVD. Like I'm a fanboy. You know what I'm saying? I'm a dick writer. Shout out to Jacob Voloshin. He would like to hear me say that. Yes, I am Conor McGregor dick writer. But when another fighter gets injured, because several fighters and a UFC employee supposedly get injured because of your actions, that is where I have to draw the line. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, what did Mike Chiesa do to deserve this? You know, like really, you know what I'm saying?
So just because, and not even due to the whole fiasco with the injuries and the weight cutting in the main event, take those two fighters out of the equation. Just because of Conor McGregor alone and that little incident, there's 6 fighters who aren't going to get a paycheck tomorrow. And if you look at it like that, there's 3 fights that were canceled. 6 fighters, one of them being Arnold, who was involved.
Right.
He was out there throwing stuff and part of their little riot squad. There's 5 other fighters that were just on the bus to do their obligations, and now they're not going to be able to fight.
And, I mean, I think even there were people reporting that just the people even on the bus were just shaken up by it. I mean, the biggest star in the sport just comes in and is causing, like, physical, like, assault on other fellow fighters. Like, the people that are supposed to be your comrade, like, I mean, not necessarily like you don't have to be your best friends, but you guys are all like independent contractors of the same employer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I know his status and his celebrity is so much larger than the other fighters are, but I don't know. I'm honestly lost for words, to be honest. It's so sad that I have to admit this, because I really always viewed him as that inspiration of mine, like as the way that he is an athlete and his mentality. And, it's just tough.
Yeah. And you have my condolences. Nobody ever wants to have to feel like they lost their heroes and stuff like that. And, those that we look up to like that. So you do have my condolences on that. It is tough. I definitely I went through that with John Jones myself, and so I can see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, I mean, John Jones, obviously a different story, because he really is the greatest fighter of all time. Conor could have been the greatest fighter of all time. And these are the things that, I mean, is this the start? I mean, the Bellator thing was the start. This is the second step. I mean, what's the third thing going to be? Is he going to be the next one to get caught with cocaine? I mean, even Dana White questioned whether or not he was on drugs yesterday. I mean, I could easily see it the way he was acting. I'm not sure that that's the case, because I did see his girlfriend was there. But, I mean, these are the actions of, like, a madman. Like, who throws a dolly at a bus? Like, you really thought you were gonna like had the supreme aim? Granted, it was a great toss. I'll give him that. It was a great toss. But did he really think he was gonna hit Khabib directly on, or Ali, or whoever he was trying to hit with that dolly or whatever?
Well, he didn't care. Did you see what he said about it? When Dana said when he spoke with him that he didn't even care about what he had done. He tried to justify it, is the way that Dana put it.
Yeah.
He said it was something that had to be done.
Yeah, and he looked at it as he was defending Artem. He said what he was apologetic of was he was apologetic for Mike getting hurt, and he wasn't really aware of Ray Borg getting hurt. And
but it was something that had to be done.
Right.
So at the end of the day, if you go into the mentality of it's just something that has to be done, then casualties are just casualties of war at that point. And that's what in that mentality. Chiesa and Borg, they're just casualties of war at that point. I mean, even Rose, and then Reed Harris said that he was in the hospital with one of the UFC employees. So we have multiple people getting hurt in this situation that are just, in his mind, just casualties of war.
Yeah,
and that just crosses the line. That's just too far at this point.
It is absolutely too far. Now let's
now
go ahead.
So, and just to wrap it up, and now, that's another fight at lightweight that they'll never be able to make. They can never promote, and this is without getting in too deep into it. If you look at the political ramifications of this, you're never gonna be able to promote that fight just out of the safety of the fighters involved. You'll never be able to book Khabib versus Conor and make it to the octagon safely without somebody getting injured. And it's too much of a liability for the UFC. So that's another fight that is off the table for the potential champion tomorrow.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to add one more thing before we get to some more positive news and the fights that are actually going to happen. What if you were the UFC, if you were Dana White, what type of punishment does this warrant? I saw somebody cracking a joke on Twitter saying this type of punishment warrants a welterweight title shot in the McGregor world. You know what I'm saying? But in reality, I mean, Dana really sounds pissed off.
You freeze his contract and you sue him. You sue him for breach of contract. You sue him for everything. You sue him for putting the other fighters in safety. You sue him for your potential lost revenue that they would have generated from losing three fights off the card, for losing a title fight. You do the numbers and then you sue him. That's what you do. And you freeze his contract the entire time.
Do they cut him though? Let him go fight somewhere else.
No, you freeze his contract and you sit on him. Much like when Randy was suing to get out of it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
When Randy was suing to get out of his contract was just kind of in limbo, which didn't allow him not to go anywhere, obviously. So they do that while they're suing him. They just kind of sit on it.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that because, I mean, you're definitely not about to let him go fight for Bellator. You're not going to let him go fight for One. You're not going to let him go fight for M1, wherever.
If he wants to go to Ryzen, let him go to Ryzen. I mean, that would be a spectacle that I would, But at the same time, he's going to take this. He's going to take this with him wherever he goes.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, I mean, he goes over to Ryzen. Well, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to fight fighters that are Khabib level or Tony Ferguson level, but what happens if he goes out there and loses? What does that do for his legacy? Like at that point, I would just.
It doesn't. No, why? It's UFC isn't the end all anymore. It's an equal playing field now across the board. Like look at the guys over at Ryzen, the roster they're starting to put together. Look at ACB. I mean, obviously that wouldn't be a good place for him to end up right now in ACB or
that would be an interesting sight to see.
And then like KSW and stuff like that. I mean, those promotions are putting on legit international competition with legit
and they have money.
And they have money. And you're gonna start seeing some of these guys go over. You're gonna start seeing this take away from the UFC as fighters start to discover this. We're at right now with on a playing field, I believe, promotional wise, that we haven't been at since probably around 2006 when the UFC went on their buying spree.
Mm-hmm.
And now that what would be our equivalent of the indie scene is starting to open up back up and has gotten elevated back up to equal field.
It's a very interesting point. I know you are a big fan of some of those different shows, and not a lot of the not a lot of the casual fans watch. M1, some of the other Russian promotions you were talking about. The names escape me at the time. What is it? ACB.
Yeah.
They're throwing money at all these old UFC and Bellator guys, and I mean, I couldn't even imagine like if Conor was to go over there, the type of money they would give him. But obviously, the circumstances with Khabib might have some influence upon his ability to get a contract there. But I don't think the UFC is ever going to let him fight anywhere else.
And right now, ACB, I believe, is producing more prospects for the UFC than any other promotion.
Interesting.
And, I mean, they're pulling guys from ACB now more so often than like Titan. And you should check out. It's crazy over there. It's blown up is over there. So, you know, if he were to go get released and he were to go fight somewhere else, he'd be able to find legit competition. But I don't think they'll let him go. I think it's gonna be the long game before he fights again. It's gonna be a lot of legal battles.
I completely agree, and I couldn't have said it better myself. But like I said, I do want to get a little bit of positivity out of this before we call it wrap it up today. I got the fight card. What is left of what was originally a 13 fight card? Obviously, the Chiesa Pettis fight off because of the injury sustained, laceration sustained by the broken glass and the McGregor fiasco. That fight is off. We're still not aware if Pettis is going to be facing Paul Felder or not, so that could be an interesting thing to come up with. But the official weigh-in, the official weigh-ins are about to start like right now. It's either right now or in an hour from now, so we'll see. So that fight's probably off. Also, Ray Borg, Brandon Moreno is off. So what we're left with is Devin Clark, Mike Rodriguez. I'm not familiar with either of those guys, so I'm just going to skip right on over that. You got Evan Dunham and Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who's kind of like been stuck in that prospect
the
mode.
Canadian gangster.
Yeah. that tweet, Instagram post he put out today was absolutely amazing. You want to tell the fans about that?
I mean, I can't remember who all he used, but he just listed off all the gangsters in the UFC and said he candidated one of himself. Go look it up. And then
go look it up. He had a really good outfit.
Canadian and a fanny pack is all.
That's what it was. The fanny pack really brought it together. I'm gonna have to say Evan Dunham's experience has probably gonna take the advantage over this. I mean, Olivier, he's a very talented guy, very talented grappler, but it seems to me like when he fights these upper level top 20, top 25 guys, he seems to just come up short. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe this is coming out party. I'd love to see it. I mean, Evan Dunham's been kind of picking and choosing who he wants to fight lately, so we'll see if that comes back to haunt him. But I'm gonna go with Evan Dunham on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I have a tendency to pick against Evan Dunham. It feels like the guy's been around forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
But his position really has never changed. He's always right on the cusp, but not quite a gatekeeper. But it seems like the skill's there, and he's ever improving. But I'm not really. He's a hard guy to pick against. He's a hard guy to pick against, but he's hard.
Right.
But so I'm gonna go.
He's getting older.
But he is getting older. But I feel like every time I pick against Dunham, that he shows up, and he's still the Dunham that I've been watching for the last decade. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna say Dunham as well.
All right. Sounds good. And then Beck Rawlings, Ashley Evans Smith. I don't want to insult either of these two ladies, but I don't have too much interest in this fight. There's not a lot of real technique. I could see it being maybe a pretty interesting brawl or a very interesting scrambling on the ground. But based on what I've seen over the past few fights, I would probably go to give the edge to Beck Rawlings. But that's one of those pick'em fights that could go either way. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Beck. I've always feel like I'm a big Ashley Evans Smith fan personally, but as far as the two fighters' performances go, I feel like Beck is one of the fighters. She's always been a little step ahead of a lot of the girls that she's paired up against.
Right.
She's been around. She has experience. I think her striking is underrated. And honestly, her last couple of fights, it seems like ever since she got knocked out, she has come back on very strong and kind of rejuvenated a bit. So I'm going to go with Beck. I think that she's about to turn a little bit. She's on kind of turning a little bit of a late career corner.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know we were talking about this one off air a little bit, and I'm sure you're pretty excited to talk about it. The main fight on the prelim card. Oh, notice how since Lobov and Caceres is no longer on the Fight Pass prelim portion, there is no longer a Fight Pass prelim portion of this card.
Oh, wow.
Which is just so fantastic for Fight Pass subscribers. Next fight that I was referring to, we spoke about it a little bit earlier. Go ahead and say Carolina's last name because I know you're going to tell me I'm wrong.
Kovalkiewicz.
Kovalkiewicz. All right. Versus Felice Herrig. You want to dive right into that one, and I'll give you my thoughts second.
I think that Felice has improved as well. It's something you see usually. You kind of notice a trend with her and Beck Rawlings that they kind of improve around the same speed, which is understandable. And I feel like Felice has looked really good in her last couple of fights and really surprised me step up. But I still really do think that Carolina beats everybody in the division, not named Claudia and Joanna. And that's no disrespect to even Rose, who's the champion. I just think that Carolina would be a bad matchup for Rose personally. Mm-hmm. So that's no disrespect.
Well, Carolina actually already beat Rose once, if you remember, at UFC 201, I believe. Tyron Woodley, Robbie Lawler, Atlanta, Georgia, if my memory serves me correct.
You probably nailed it. I'm
pretty sure. I don't know how I remember that. I remember that day. Yeah, she fought Rose. She beat Rose by a split decision at UFC 201, July 30th of 2016, and that was the day that Woodley won the belt from Robbie. So yeah, I mean, did you have anything else to add? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I tend to think that Carolina's right up there. I mean, I hate to just keep harping off of what you were saying, but right as far as top five, I mean, I could see her beating any one of those top five guys. I mean, I know she had a hard fight with Joanna, but I mean, you go back and you look, she did rock her in that fourth round. That's probably the hardest I had seen her get hit since, until obviously the Rose fight. Then if you look at the fact that she beat Rose, the only tough task the only time she really got her ass handed to her was against Claudia Gadelha. And that was just a fight that I don't think was really prepared for in terms of the dominance of Claudia's ground game. Really just took her down, instantly snatched the back up, and had the rear naked choke within probably, I believe, the first round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was. It was very quickly on.
Very quickly and very impressively. But then, you saw Claudia go out and get her ass handed to her by Jessica Andrade. So I mean, this strawweight division, these guys, it can go any which way so quickly. And I mean, I could see the winner of this fight. I'm sorry if you said this already, but I could see the winner of this fight being right up there as the number one contender. You know what I'm saying? Especially if it's Carolina, because I mean, her and Rose already have the history. Her and Joanna already have the history. And for Felice Herrig, if she pulls off this upset, she's been on a tear. Of course, she might not get the title shot next, but she might get a number one contender fight after that.
Well, honestly, if Felice does win, I could see it being a thing. I absolutely.
I mean, she's got the look. She's got the personality.
And like I said, she's continuously improving. She's right at the spot. Why keep it going while it's hot?
Absolutely. I want to get through these main card ones pretty quickly because I want to try to catch the weigh-in, make sure that I understand really fully what's going on. But I'm just going to go ahead and guess that you're going to pick Lozon over Chris Grusenmacher.
No, I'm not. I'm going to go the other way.
No, you're not. Are you really?
I am.
Oh, can you please tell me why? Because I'm curious now. I have to know.
Oh my God, I don't know, dude. That's just my hunch pick of the card. It's just
Lozon's getting too old.
It's just Lozon. He's been his last few. He's been hit or miss, and it's almost been like he's been a little bit step behind.
Yep.
His last few fights, and I can't believe I'm picking against Lozon, especially as scrappy as he is.
Boston guy, yeah.
Yeah, Boston guy. But I think this might be that fight for him.
Interesting.
I can see it's fight to lose, and he has a tendency to lose those.
I know he's been in a lot of split decisions lately. I mean, with the Jim Miller and then the Marching Held fight, which I believe he actually won split decision, and then got on the mic and told John Anik or whoever it was that he thought that he had lost the fight. And then it was like the other way around when he fought Jim Miller. It was he won or he lost the fight, but everyone else thought he had won, and Jim thought he had won. So, yeah. I mean, I guess now that you're talking about a sleeper pick, I could see maybe Grutzenmacher split decision. But I've just not been very impressed with Grutzenmacher's UFC career. I mean, not to hate on Artem, but he got knocked out by Artem in the tough gym. So that's just throwing that out there. Yeah. There were a lot of guys that actually got knocked. Artem knocked out everybody except for Ryan Hall on the Ultimate Fighter show, and that was in the finale.
Everybody that Artem's ever landed flush on, though, backs up. Even if he didn't knock him out, they always back up. Even in his UFC losses.
With his little T-Rex arms.
Like, if he cracks you with, it's there. I've noticed that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go Lozon. I'm gonna have to think that he gets it done in the second round, possibly a late second round TKO, just pounding him out, maybe snatch up a neck or an arm if it's there. But I think Chris is going to try to grapple with him, and I don't think that he's ready for Lozon's grappling because I know he's not ready for Lozon's striking. Not saying that Lozon has the best striking in the world, but I know what Chris is.
But you don't want to get into a brawl for Lozon.
That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. And speaking of the exact opposite of a brawl, Zabit Magomed Sharipov, one of the most technical up-and-coming prospects that we have coming out of Mark Henry's camp, training with guys like Eddie Alvarez, Frankie Edgar, Edson Barbosa, Marlon Moraes, and they talk about this guy like he's the next big thing. I know you and I kind of talked off the air saying he might be a future champion. What do you know about Kyle Bogniak, and what do you think he's going to have to do to withstand the storm that we all presume Zabit to be bringing on tomorrow night?
I don't have any advice. I think Zabit is a future champion in the division.
Absolutely.
He is one of those ACB guys that I was talking about. I genuinely think that he's on his way to holding the title. And, I mean, he's still young to be as a fighter, his career-wise. But I think this is his performance. This is his fight to put on a performance.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I watched both of his first two fights, and the first fight I saw incredible striking, with a little bit of grappling. The second fight I saw incredible grappling with a little bit of striking. I mean, he really just knows how to mix it up. And I mean, in a division where you've got these guys like Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, I mean, Aldo's still up there. Jeremy Stevens is right there. All these guys, I mean,
and he comes at you fast.
He's going to cut the step up in competition is going to be quick. I think this is his last really kind of not gimme fight because I know Bogniak is tough, but I think this is kind of a showcase fight for him.
Yes.
Similar to, I mean, it's completely different, but like similar to what the UFC did. I hate to bring it back to McGregor, but I have to here. What they did with McGregor and Brandao, like they gave him a guy who he should beat in his hometown. Not really his hometown, but Brooklyn has a very heavy Russian base, and that is one actually big thing that is kind of interesting about all this stuff. All the fights that got lost in this card is Zabit actually got bumped up to the main card, which I think is huge for his career because he was actually originally scheduled to be on the prelims. So I think that's huge. I'm interested to see how he performs like on the card with Khabib, like if that has any pressure. I'm not sure if they're friends or anything, but I mean, just being in Brooklyn, that's kind of like a home away from home. I mean, you saw how many Khabib fans there were yesterday at the press conference. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if that's going to have any type of pressure on him. I mean, he seems to me like doesn't even have the ability to crack under pressure in him, but we'll see. I tend to think he's going to get a finish, maybe another choke. Probably another choke. Maybe he shows off his striking a little bit more, finishes it on the feet. We'll see. But I hate to. Well, I guess we did have one pick that was different so far with the Lozon and Grutzenmacher, but I'm gonna have to also go with Zabit. Moving along, we have Boston's own Calvin Kattar and Renato Moicano. I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm not going to give any technical analysis. I'm going with Calvin Kattar just because Boston boy And go Red Sox, go Patriots, and that's all I got to say for that one.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm going with the same pick right across the board. This is one of the you and I
are a couple of Red Sox fans that
we're in a group
don't want to root for the other guy.
And we're in a group today right now with our picks. And after the chaotic 24 hours I've had, I'm just taking one for the fanboyism, for the fandom, and go with Cater.
Given the way that this week has gone, would not be surprised if every single one of our picks were wrong, my friend. Every single one of them. Usually I'm pretty confident in them.
I'm going to wake up tomorrow and the card's going to get fucking canceled, and I'm just
they're going to flip. They're going to reverse the order, and Devin Clark and Mike Rodriguez will be the main event. It could be Quinta's going to be on Fight Pass.
They should do it like the old WWE Royal Rumble lottery where you just pick where you come out. You're in this one. You're in this one. You get a ball.
Oh, we could only wish. The shit show continues. The shit show continues. But I mean, with all the nonsense that has been going on this week, this might be the fight that really saves the day. Rose and Joanna finally get to rematch. I know it wasn't that long ago that Rose took the belt and just completely embarrassed Joanna, knocked her out in the first round when nobody thought – I mean, it's not that nobody thought Rose had a chance. It was more that if she was going to get it done, it was going to be a submission or something of that nature. And to come out here and knock her out with a left hook after she'd already sat her down once, it wasn't just a lucky punch. That same punch had landed twice, and putting the second one really just put her out. And it's still can be debated whether or not she tapped her strikes. I'll just leave that open for interpretation. But this is a fight I've been looking forward to ever since the moment that Rose knocked out Joanna the first time. And I would love to hear what you have to think about it.
I think this is, this could have been the main event either way. This, in my opinion, maybe I'll catch a flag for it. I really don't care. This is the biggest fight in women's MMA since Ronda's last fight, since Ronda fought. And
absolutely, I can see that. I don't see much arguing with that at all.
Joanna was a dominant champion, considered not just in women's MMA top pound for pound. She was one of the top pound for pound, pound for pound fighters. Those obviously, as we talked about earlier today, any ranking system is arbitrary, and especially pound for pound, it's just kind of like fantasy booking. But she was considered a top fighter in the world, regardless of gender, and she is now. Then she was dethroned, and she was knocked out. It wasn't just like, oh, she lost a decision. It could have been close. She was knocked out. And then now we have the rematch for that. We get to see this is almost Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman too. The only difference is that Anderson was probably on his way out of his prime then. No discredit to Weidman, whereas Joanna is still in her prime.
Joanna
is at the prime of her career. Rose is at the prime of her career. This fight is huge for women's MMA.
Hopefully we don't see any catastrophic leg injuries. That would be the icing on the cake for this chaotic week if Joanna comes out there and just snaps her leg on checking a kick or something. But no, what you said about I really agree with what you said about in a sense the Weidman and Silva thing too. For me, I kind of see this and I know that Joanna she was starting to kind of reach that not superstar status really with the mainstream media, but she was starting to be more well known. I mean, she would show up to press conferences and get some of the biggest pop out of when there was a bunch of other big stars on the table. I kind of look at it as what we never got with Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm too. The dominant champion who no one thought could be beaten. Granted, two different styles. Comes out and she got beaten. Obviously, Joanna got beaten at her own game with the striking thing. Ronda was more or less convinced that she was a striker, and that's a whole different thing. But as far as the anticipation for a hardcore fan, I mean, those two things go neck and neck. Because nobody really thought Holly had a chance. I mean, they thought she had a marginal chance, but it wasn't like she was going to devastatingly flatline her and just rearrange the configuration of her career, and that's almost what it feels like what Rose has done to Joanna. It's the weight cut. It wasn't me. It was the weight cut that got me knocked out. All that nonsense. And I'm not discrediting that she had a bad weight cut. And I'm not saying that it probably didn't make things worse, but that weight cut didn't keep you from blocking that left hook.
Yeah.
Wake up didn't keep you from keeping your hand up or ducking and bobbing and weaving the correct way. Like,
and if you watch the embedded videos leading up to it and the countdown videos leading up to it, or however there was, I'm not sure if it was embedded, but it was the QFC countdown videos they went up to it. Joanna still seems emotional about the fight. She's still carrying an emotion.
You talking about now or back then?
No, now. If you look at her now, she's still carrying an emotion about the fight that she can't take that into the cage with her.
Absolutely, because you saw. So this was the comparison that I got, and the reason why, if you remember for UFC 217, I actually picked Rose to win the fight, and I believe I said second round TKO or second round submission, doesn't matter. But the reason why I picked her was because it seemed so similar. Well, I hate to go back to the Ronda thing because I know they're on two different stratospheres, but the way that Ronda got in Holly's face and tried to like say, oh, I see through your fake preacher's daughter bullshit or whatever it was she was saying, like trying to play the hard ass. And Joanna was really trying to punk out Rose, and like Rose and Holly both stood there and just sat there and took it, no retaliation. And they're both just genuinely nice people. It seemed like the parallels were so similar. Obviously we never got that Rousey rematch with Holly Holm, but I'm not sure who I think is going to win this fight, but I think this is going to, at least in a sense, satisfy that hunger that I had that I never got fulfilled, excuse me, from the Holm-Rousey 2 fight. But I will add, I'm going to pick Rose again by third round submission. I
would be in the doghouse in my household if I picked against Joanna.
But there's a part of you. There's a part of you.
I'm very excited for this fight. I'm gonna go with Joanna. I'm really happy to see Rose win the championship and reach her goal. We all thought she was gonna be the first champion, the inaugural. Then she got upset in the first title fight, and she came back her second time and won. It's a true story. But I do think that Joanna is going to be I think Rose will be the champion again, but I think Joanna is going to get it here. And, for the sake of the division and for the sake of the rivalry, let them, I kind of see Joanna do it, so they have to run it back a third time.
Absolutely. And who doesn't love a good trilogy? And, I mean, we've pretty much gotten all the way through. Obviously, the last fight was just recently announced. It's a catchweight fight. Okay, hold on. So are we 100% sure that this is for the title? Because on Wikipedia it says it's a catch weight at 155.2 pounds between Nurmagomedov and Iaquinta. Can we go? I'm gonna go to MMAfighting.com to confirm.
Khabib can win the title, but Al cannot.
Oh, but it's still technically a catch weight because Al came in at 155.2. I guess is the way that they're describing it.
One would have to assume, and I'm not affiliated with the UFC in any way, so this is just a wild guess. One would almost want to assume that titles they're awarded by the UFC. So you kind of have to think that if Al comes in there and times a takedown and flatlines Khabib, that he might be getting a belt at the presser no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, they probably won't give him the belt, but I mean, can you imagine the speech that will be given post fight? I mean, I can't even imagine. He might tear up everybody's hotel room. I mean, Raging Al will be in full form. I just wanted to throw my 2 cents out there because I don't have a lot of opinion on this fight, because with this crazy week that we've had, I mean, I could almost see Khabib going out there and landing a 360 spinning back kick, Edson Barbosa style, to knock out.
Let's finish it now.
It's just you just don't know what's going to happen. I honestly think that it's going to be a just absolute, complete, and utter beatdown. Probably a lot worse than the other guys would have received. Talking about Holloway, talking about Pettis, talking about Felder. But it really it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to stop Khabib, man. Because it's the same thing that I said about Max. It's gonna be the same thing I said about probably Felder or Pettis. As soon as he gets you down one time, the fight's over. I don't care if you get back up in the round. you're going to go back down again, and even if you don't get back up that round, by the time that bell rings for that first or second round, you're gonna be like Edson Barbosa, and you're gonna realize that you can barely stand up on your own, and then you're gonna realize this is a 5-round fight, and the only way out is to give up or to just. I mean, I guess the only way out is to give up or give up. Do I tap out, or do I just let the guy beat the crap out of me? I mean, so far Khabib's 25-0. He's done everything that he wanted
dominantly,
and everybody who has given him a challenge. And I mean, like I said, we've seen crazier things in the sport. I mean, Michael Bisping came in and knocked out Luke Rockhold on 13 days' notice. Nate Diaz came out and submitted Conor McGregor. I'm not saying that this wouldn't be the most impressive out of all of them, because it absolutely would. But, I mean, with all that being said, Khabib is just, from what I've seen, is on another level. Do I think Al could get it done? Yes, but if it's not in the first 1 minute of the fight, I don't think he has a chance. And that's just how it is.
I'm gonna go with Khabib as well. You
think he makes it to decision?
No, I don't think it goes that far. And
you think he subs him, or he pounds him out?
I think he subs him.
And
yeah, I think he subs him.
Did he sub Michael Johnson, or did he? I can't remember. How did that fight at Madison Square Garden? With the Kimura, maybe?
It's when he told him. I believe he told Michael Johnson something along the lines of, "I need this. You need to give up." And then
I need title. I need title shot. Yeah.
And then he subbed Michael Johnson.
I could see a very, very similar style fight. I could see a very, very similar style ending.
Hold on a second. Sorry to cut you off. We got some activity in the chat. I missed a little bit.
Okay.
We got somebody in the chat over here saying that Al's going to win, that Iaquinta is going to win.
I mean,
curious to what the chat thinks, how he's going to pull this off.
Oh, man. I appreciate the input. And like I said, I mean, the way this week's been going, nothing would surprise me, man. When they were
at Khabib time.
Shout out to you, my friend. Earlier in the day, I was just so out of it, and I was like, when they were talking about Pettis being the one to take the fight, I was like, all right, I'm calling it. Khabib's gonna rush in. He's gonna come in recklessly. He's gonna try to push Pettis up against the fence to get his takedown, and then Pettis is gonna run up and showtime kick him. Like. That's where I'm at right now. I'm just thinking that the impossible is possible, and anything is in play.
It's that early flying knee is Iaquinta's. It's his one shot.
Yeah, the thing about Khabib is he really never shoots those reckless singles or doubles. He really tries to get that clinch and that body lock position and then trip you down. But he has been known. I have seen him shoot some pretty wild shots, and I mean, I don't know how his game plan differs. I don't know. I wonder if he even thinks he could go in there and possibly strike with Iaquinta, which would just be a terrible mistake. But I mean, at this point, you gotta. I don't know. I just wonder what's going on in Khabib's mind. I think he gets done, but he's been through a lot this week. I mean, he thought he was fighting Max. He thought he might be fighting Anthony. He thought he might be fighting Paul. He thought he was fighting Al, and now he is fighting Al. It's just
Khabib has very unorthodox striking too.
Yeah.
So, Shooter in the chat is calling Al Iaquinta with an uppercut or a knee as well.
Okay, I can see that. I can see the uppercut.
Yeah,
the uppercut coming in on even if it was
Al has a really good uppercut. He's really good at sneaking that in there.
Yeah, and I'm not obviously comparing Diego Sanchez to Khabib by any means, but some of those combos, what I'm saying that he put on Diego, or when Diego was trying to shoot, I do remember a lot of those shots, stepping off on an angle, banging that uppercut or banging that left hook. And I mean, he's just got such heavy hands. I could see Khabib. Maybe if they get into like a bit of a striking exchange early, Khabib gets hit up a little bit and he starts getting reckless and tries to get his body locked, and then Iaquinta just sneaks an uppercut right up the gut, right on the jaw. I mean, you're gonna have to put Khabib to sleep to really beat him, in my opinion. I don't think you're gonna. I don't think there's knocking Khabib down and him getting TKO'd. I think you literally are gonna have to put this guy to sleep. And I can't say for sure because we never seen his chin really tested, but. I mean, maybe this is the fight to see it. I mean, with all the madness that's happened so far, would you really be surprised? Would you really be surprised?
Nothing surprises me in combat sports anymore. I gave up on that a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, go ahead.
And I don't want it to come off like we're just that I'm counting Alec Quindal completely and disrespect him as a fighter. I'm not. I recognize he's one of the best fighters in the world, and I give mad respect to any of these guys who step here and do this. But there's just something about Khabib that's just on such another level that I guess I guess it would be. I guess I would have to say, I would be shocked a bit if Al pulled it off.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've pretty much covered it all. I'm really looking forward to see what we hear from the weigh-ins, seeing if there's any more guest appearances, seeing if maybe Ronda Rousey shows up to really just throw a big curveball. Says, screw WrestleMania. I'm coming back to the UFC. I'm fighting Khabib. Sorry, Al. Something crazy. I feel like just anything could happen. But hopefully, in reality, all the madness is behind us. We can enjoy some fights. And we can all come back on Monday and talk about it, and we can put the past behind us. I know it's been a really rough week. Conor McGregor might have a little bit more problems to deal with than all of our own little just mental pain that we're suffering from the fights being canceled. But I mean, I think we've said all there is to say here. I mean, is there anything you wanted to add before we let it go?
No, I think that's it. We covered everything. I just say let's reconvene. And a couple of days and see if we actually have a champion at 155. If it's a vacant title, if somebody's stripped, if somebody's holding it, and then that.
Can you imagine before we go? I want to leave you on this. Could you imagine if Al wins, and there is no title holder? I mean, I think we were talking, you said something earlier to this effect that Dana has already said that Conor has been stripped, but I was under the impression that it was as soon as the fight started, Conor was stripped. But if they strip Conor when the fight starts and then Al wins, so there's just going to be no champion?
I feel like at that point they just have to award him the title.
I mean, yeah, or just give he's gonna be a title. They're gonna make him. They probably would make him rematch Khabib, to be honest, or fight Tony. Probably. I don't even know at this point. I really don't. It's just I'm out of words. I'm out of.
I feel like at 155 now you just draw a name out of a hat and that's who you fight.
I mean, in this day and age, I mean, in these times, I couldn't see anything else. But yeah, I'm about to get ready, try to watch these weigh-ins. I hope everybody else is going to do the same. Maybe, and hopefully all the drama is done. Hopefully tomorrow night we can enjoy some fights. Fraymous, let's reconvene. Hopefully Monday or Tuesday. Let it all marinate over the weekend. We'll see where we're at. I'm sure I'll talk to you in the meantime. But to all the fans out there, we really appreciate you watching Mumble in the Jungle. We're gonna try to get back on in the swing of things. I still have a really crappy computer, but we're making it work. I appreciate you, Mike, for being on. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. And as always, you can catch me on Twitter at Fraymous. You'll recognize me as Fights with Fray. You can catch the work at Focus Fights. It's also Focus Fights will also be hosting this as along with Mikey T on his channel. So you'll be able to catch this on a couple different ways. So thanks as always, and just keep it over.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And yeah, once again, I'm Michael Thompson. You can find me on Twitter at MikeyTMMA. And you can also find our podcast, our show, Mumble in the Jungle. We're starting to crank it back up. We do have a Twitter page set up, but we are currently looking for the passwords for it. So be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, enjoy the fights this weekend. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.